Cain and the first curse, the dark origins of vampires. At the dawn of humanity, beneath the watchful gaze of the Almighty, a single act of bloodshed altered the course of existence forever. Cain, the firstborn of Adam and Eve, committed the unthinkable. He slew his own brother Abel, but the price he paid was far greater than mere exile. His punishment was not just to wander the desolate lands, but to bear a mark, an eternal curse that would twist his very nature into something unrecognizable. Alone, forsaken, and burdened with guilt, Cain wandered into the land of Nod, a barren, lifeless place where neither time nor mercy held sway. Hunger gnawed at him, yet no mortal food could satisfy the growing void within. His body ached for something unknown, something forbidden. Was this the true nature of his punishment? A torment that transcended mere banishment? Then, in the depths of his despair, Cain encountered Lilith, the first woman, Adam's abandoned wife, a being cast out for defying divine order. Unlike Cain, Lilith did not mourn her exile. She embraced it, reveling in the power it granted her. She saw in Cain a kindred spirit, a soul unshackled from divine law. Whispering ancient secrets, she offered him knowledge beyond human comprehension, a way to transcend his suffering. Under her guidance, Cain undertook a forbidden ritual known only to the exiled. Arcane symbols were etched into the earth, ancient words were spoken, and as the ceremony unfolded, something within Cain began to change. Then, the final test, a chalice filled with Lilith's own blood, thick, rich, pulsing with something ancient. The moment the liquid touched his lips, a transformation unlike any other began. His senses sharpened, his strength became unearthly, his body no longer bound by the frailty of mortality. But with this dark gift came a terrible cost, an insatiable hunger, one that could only be sated by blood. But Cain's defiance had not gone unnoticed. 3 angels descended from the heavens, offering him one last chance at redemption. They pleaded with him, warning of the path he had chosen. Yet Cain, now something beyond human, refused. With each rejection, a new curse was laid upon him. Sunlight would burn his flesh. Fire, once a symbol of warmth and life, would now be his greatest enemy, and his thirst for blood would never be quenched. Cain was no longer man, no longer beast. He had become something else entirely. The first vampire, the progenitor of a cursed lineage that would haunt the shadows of history. But was this truly a punishment, or was it the birth of something far more sinister? A dark gift that would shape the world forever? The founding of Enoch, the birth of vampire civilization. Cain wandered through the cursed wastelands, a being neither alive nor truly dead, his existence a shadow of torment. The mark upon his forehead ensured that no mortal dared to approach him, yet destiny had other plans. One fateful night, Cain stumbled upon Ubar, a thriving city where the descendants of Seth toiled beneath the scorching sun. The people beheld him with awe, for he was unlike anything they had ever seen. His presence was overwhelming, his unnatural beauty, his piercing gaze, the power that radiated from him like an unholy flame. To them, he was not an exile, not a cursed being, but something divine, a god among men. Among them was Enoch, a young and wise ruler who saw in Cain not a wanderer, but a king. With unwavering devotion, Enoch offered his throne to Cain, believing that only he could lead Ubar into an era of greatness. And thus, the first vampire city was born, Enoch, the cradle of a new civilization. Under Cain's rule, the city flourished in ways never before seen. His knowledge of agriculture, power, and the arcane transformed Ubar into a kingdom unlike any other. Yet, despite its splendor, Cain remained alone. The love and devotion of mortals could not fill the void within him. Desperate to create bonds that would last for eternity, he chose 2 of his most devoted followers and granted them immortality. But his gift became their curse. When they realized their undead existence meant they could never create life, despair consumed them. In sorrow, they chose to walk into the sunlight, embracing death over an eternity of emptiness. Cain was devastated. His greatest gift had become the ultimate punishment. From that moment, he vowed to be cautious, yet he would not remain alone forever. He chose 3 others, Enoch, Arad, and Zillah, his first true progeny, the 2nd generation. And with them, the bloodline of vampires began. The fall of Enoch, the birth of the vampire clans. Enoch was meant to be an eternal kingdom, a sanctuary for Cain's children, a monument to his dark legacy. But eternity breeds ambition, and ambition breeds betrayal. The 3rd generation, Cain's grandchildren, grew powerful, arrogant, and reckless. They no longer feared their progenitor. They no longer revered him. To them, Cain was not their father, but an obstacle. They whispered in the shadows, plotted in secret, and soon Enoch became a city consumed by deception and bloodshed. The unity that once bound them together fractured. War erupted among the immortal. Brother turned against brother, progeny against sire. The dream of an undying empire crumbled into chaos. And then the flood came, a divine reckoning, a cataclysm that would erase the sins of a corrupted world. Whether it was the wrath of God or the weight of its own corruption, Enoch was swallowed by the waters. Its towers fell, its streets drowned, its people, both mortal and vampire, perished in the deluge. The great city, once a beacon of supernatural power, was reduced to nothing but ruin and myth. Cain survived. He stood amidst the wreckage of his empire, surrounded by the remnants of those he once called his family. But there was no love left in him, no mercy, only judgment. In his fury, he cursed his own bloodline. No longer would his descendants walk the earth as gods. Each antediluvian, the third generation, would bear a mark, a flaw, a weakness woven to their very essence. Some would be enslaved by their own hunger, others would lose their humanity entirely. Every clan that arose from them would carry these curses, ensuring that their descendants would forever suffer for their ancestors' sins. And with his final words spoken, Cain vanished. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving his children to tear each other apart. The first city was gone, but from its ashes, the vampire clans would rise, scattered, fractured, and forever haunted by the curse of their dark father. The legend of Cain and the great schism among vampire clans. Cain vanished into the shadows, leaving his children to govern themselves. But without their dark father to guide them, chaos ensued. The once mighty bloodline splintered, giving rise to factions, each with their own vision of the truth, each with their own agenda. Shash, the Camarilla, the denial of Cain. The Camarilla, the most powerful vampire sect, sought to impose order above all else. To them, Cain was nothing more than a myth, a dangerous tale that threatened the stability of their carefully constructed society. If vampires believed Cain still existed, if they feared his return, chaos would spread like wildfire. So they erased him. His name was stricken from history. His legend was condemned as heresy. Any vampire who dared to speak of him, who whispered of Gehenna, the prophesied return of Cain, was silenced. The Camarilla enforced the masquerade, ensuring that both humans and vampires remained ignorant of the true origins of their kind, but not all were willing to forget. Sabbath, the cult of Cain. To the Sabbath, Cain was not a myth. He was the truth, the first, the most powerful, the father of all vampires. They did not fear Gehenna, they welcomed it. To them, Cain's return was not a catastrophe. It was a reckoning, a purge. The world had been corrupted by the antediluvians, the ancient third-generation vampires who had twisted Cain's legacy into their own power-hungry tyranny. The Sabbath saw themselves as Cain's warriors, his chosen. They rejected human morality, embraced their monstrous nature, and prepared for the day their dark father would rise again to cleanse the world in blood. The other factions divided loyalties. Beyond the Camarilla and the Sabbat, other sects held their own interpretations of Cain's legacy. The Assamites, an ancient clan of assassins, believed that Cain's bloodline was a curse and that all vampires should be eradicated. The followers of Set, a secretive and mystical cult, claimed that Cain was merely a pawn in a far greater cosmic struggle, that true power lay elsewhere. The Inconnu, an elusive and enigmatic group, claimed to know the truth of Cain's whereabouts but remained hidden, waiting for the day when the prophecy would be fulfilled. And so the legend of Cain endured, a whispered curse, a forbidden prophecy, a nightmare lurking just beyond the edges of history. But if Cain still walked the earth, if he was to return, what judgment would he bring? The return of Cain and the prophecy of Gehenna. For centuries, whispers of an ancient prophecy have persisted, a chilling revelation recorded in the Book of Nod. It speaks of a time known as Gehenna, the end of days for vampires, when the Dark Father will rise once more. Some believe Cain will return as an unstoppable force of vengeance, a god of wrath who will purge his corrupted bloodline. They say he will hunt down the antediluvians, the ancient third generation, who twisted his gift into a tool of power, and that he will drown the world in their blood. To them, Gehenna is not just a prophecy, it is a reckoning, an inevitable war where Cain will restore balance by eradicating his treacherous descendants. But others tell a different story. They believe that Cain has spent his exile searching not for revenge, but for redemption, that his wanderings through the land of Nod, his suffering, and his solitude were not punishments, but a test to see if he could reclaim his lost humanity. If this is true, then Gehenna is not the end, but a new beginning, a chance for Cain to guide his lost children away from destruction and toward a greater purpose. Yet there are those who fear an even darker truth. What if both prophecies are correct? What if Cain returns not as a savior or a destroyer, but as both? What if his judgment is not a blind slaughter, but a reckoning that will separate those who are beyond saving from those who might still find grace? And here's the most terrifying thought of all. What if Cain never truly left? Legends speak of a figure wandering the shadows, an ancient presence lurking just beyond the veil of history. Some claim he moves unseen, watching, testing, waiting for the moment when the world is ready for his return. If that moment is near, will Cain rise as a savior, or will he be the final destroyer?